Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and my oh my, do we have something absolutely incredible to take a look at today. This is the beginning of an era for Jurassic Justin, as this is the initial release from Jurassic Justin for the retro revival line, the Dimetrodon, and you can quite clearly see that they're stated on the packaging as he has gone the extra mile, I can say that for sure, to make sure that this is as nostalgic as it gets and really pleases the adult collector, because this is unbelievable quality overall. And of course, I haven't even taken the Dimetrodon out quite yet, but the entire thing is just absolutely unbelievable. I've had a few minutes here to kind of take a look over the packaging and just check it out, and I am beyond blown away by how amazing this actually is. I had high hopes for this. I knew it was going to be pretty good, but honestly, it has far exceeded my expectations by a mile, and I haven't even opened the package up yet. Just by looking at the actual box art for this, it is just so unbelievably cool. As you can see here on the front of the packaging, you've got the Dimetrodon in a very nice window, and that straight away is really cool because, of course, it gives you a sneak peek of the figure contained within, but it also kind of gives you the idea of like almost a paddock where you can look through to see the Dimetrodon. So instantly it's screaming nostalgia from the 1993 Jurassic Park line, and is probably one of the coolest ways to present a figure, I think, with this kind of like paddock type of a look where, again, it looks like you're looking at the Dimetrodon in its paddock, and that is just so cool. Jurassic Justin has gone above and beyond to give us packaging that honestly screams Jurassic Park and just warms my heart. If you go up to the top of the packaging, you can see Retro Revival up there at the top, as well as some images here that kind of circle around where the Dimetrodon is contained, circling around the window area of skeletal reconstructions of the Dimetrodon, as well as other species that it seems like we have contained within. So that is super, super cool. Again, continuing with the unbelievably awesome packaging, and honestly, looking at it here just from the front, this is only the beginning of how cool this packaging is. So if you bring it to the side, you can now see that over here we have some labels of different things that are apparently available here, as we have the River Adventure, the Visitor Center, the Aviary, the Safari Lodge, the Marine Facility, the Park Drive, the First Aid, and restrooms. So continuing with the park-like trend as far as the packaging goes, which I think is, again, super cool. But then if we come down here a little bit, right under that, you can see that we have Dimetrodon coming summer 1993, and we obviously know why 1993 is significant, and that entire thing there is just insanely cool, again, as everything else. There's just so much to the packaging. It's really incredible to just look it over and see how much work he has put into this. And then down here, we can see that it says no feeding, flash photography, or yelling. Of course, we don't want to upset any of the species contained within Jurassic Park. We'll get to the back here in a moment. If we go over here to the side, again, you can see that we have that paddock-like look, and we also have a danger sign, as well as what appears to be some bullet holes, so that's never a good sign. And then there's also some scratch marks and maybe even some potentially dried blood right there, obviously showing off the horrible aspects of what happens in Jurassic Park. If we actually come up to the top, you can see, again, Retro Revival, Dimetrodon up there at the top. And then if we go around to the back, and this is where we are absolutely loaded with stuff. Figured I'd pull this up here, get a little bit of a better light. But if you see here, we run across the top, you can continue to see into the paddock where the Dimetrodon is contained. You can see those very nostalgic Jurassic Park colors and the trees and everything contained within, very Kenner-like, very Jurassic Park-like in general. And then if we come over here, I love that it shows the different species as far as the different paddocks that you could see running down the length of this side, which I'd imagine are probably like some sneak peeks of what we will be getting, kind of like some clues or basically a checklist of different species that he is planning to release, one of which I thought was really cool as we have his Coelophysis. But if you see here, the Dimetrodon is lit up, and that's because obviously we have the Dimetrodon here, which is so insanely cool. And if you move over here, it also says Retro Revival and then has Series 1 highlighted, so we know that this is Series 1. But if you run down the course of this over here of the different paddocks, you can see that we have the Dilophosaurus would be next, Velociraptor, Coelophysis, Pteranodon, Young T-Rex, Stegosaurus, Triceratops, Tyrannosaurus Rex, Alpha Velociraptor, and Alpha Dilophosaurus. So super excited to see any and everything that he is going to produce in the future. You can also see over here on the side, again, what is included. We have one articulated figure, one collector's card, one display box, and one sense of nostalgia. And man, I must tell you that that is completely true. And then it also states that each Retro Revival figure is designed, 3D printed, painted, and assembled by Jurassic Justin. And then we have his name as well as his signature right there, which is also really, really cool. Again, that is a lot of work to put on one man. It honestly is. So it's very impressive that Jurassic Justin is putting forth this much effort and creating something that honestly is a dream-worthy product all by himself. Super impressive by him. I honestly feel like he deserves a round of applause. And then over here, we also have what I'd imagine is probably a sneak peek of the card contained within, but it shows off the back here and it shows us a bunch of information on the Dimetrodon, as well as a description down here, a little bit more information. So that is also super cool. And then down here at the bottom, it does say, attention, small parts not intended for children, designed for adult collectors only, handle with care. So again, the packaging is as unbelievable as the figure probably is, and I can't say that for sure because I haven't opened it quite yet, but I'm certain it's going to be amazing when I do. And I'm honestly, again, just in awe at how cool the packaging of this is. Once this review is over, I fully intend on returning this Dimetrodon back to this packaging, and that is exactly how it will be displayed here in my collection, is in the packaging up on the shelf looking amazing. So I am beyond excited to check this out. So let's go ahead, pop this box open, and take a look at the initial entry into the Retro Revival line. So straight away, one thing that I really love about all of this is just how good Jurassic Justin is at making sure that you don't mess up the packaging at all. Sometimes you'll get like a figure and there'll be like a card in it, and to get the card you kind of have to like tear the product a little bit like the box art. But that is not the case with the Jurassic Justin version. As we can see here, the card is basically, you know, flip-flopped here on the inside. You could see the back of the card when we were looking at the back of the packaging. But then when you take a look here at the inside of the packaging, once you pull the bottom out, which releases your Dimetrodon, you can see that the card is contained within, sporting some beautiful, very Kenner-like artwork there of the Jurassic Justin version of the Dimetrodon. So you can see the front of the card here, and then of course the back of the card is contained back here. So you can see both sides of the card without ever removing it from the packaging, which means the packaging gets to stay original and incredible. And if that wasn't nice enough of him, on the back of the insert here where the Dilophosaurus is contained, there's also a slip that includes instructions on your figure, you know, how to loosen up the joints and everything like that, and basically a thank you from Jurassic Justin for purchasing one of his models. But, you know, another instance here where you would look at it and think, oh, well, now I'm going to have to tear that off. That is not the case because he actually has it aimed here at the outside, so you can just pull this slip up, slide the instructions out, then slide the instructions back in after you read them, and then everything again stays original. I love that aspect of the packaging here. And just a quick look at the inside of the packaging here, you can see those beautiful trees there, those beautiful palm trees with that really nice sunset, showing off the very nice Jurassic Park style background. And then there's also an area down here where the Dimetrodon stands as well, sports some really cool earthy-like areas for your display. And I love this aspect as well. Like, this doesn't get any cooler, honestly, than what I'm seeing here. And then you must prepare yourself to have your mind blown, because here is the Jurassic Justin Retro Revival Dimetrodon. And wow is pretty much all I can say. That is as drop-dead gorgeous of a Jurassic Park-inspired Dimetrodon as I have ever seen in my entire life. And in fact, this is unquestionably my favorite Dimetrodon in my collection, and I've only just taken it out of the packaging, only briefly taken a look at this. It is insane. Like, I was wondering how smooth the articulation would be and stuff on the figure when I actually received it here in hand. It is incredibly smooth. Like, I don't know that I've ever seen smoother articulation. Like, all of the limbs work. There's nothing at all that is even remotely stiff. Even the tail articulation, look at that. This is the type of stuff that would be pretty much a stop-motion dream when it comes to creating kind of Jurassic Park-inspired stop-motion, which we know that the Rex originally was designed potentially to be stop-motion, so it's cool to have that idea here and be able to utilize that with the Jurassic Justin figures. And of course, he's going to continue on with the line, so we'll have a plethora of articulated figures like this at some point from Jurassic Justin, which will then give you the ability to create an entire stop-motion Jurassic Park if that's what you would really like to do. And these figures here are honestly perfect for it because, again, the articulation is as smooth as I think I've ever seen. And the entire thing just sports that beautiful Kenner-like look, but with a really nice, very highly detailed and more updated look of the sculpt. And the paint job, of course, also kind of resembles the Kenner Dimetrodon, but looks better. Honestly, everything about this is better than the Kenner version, and it's not very often that you'll hear me say something is better than the Kenner Jurassic Park figures, but this is definitely one of those times. This Dimetrodon, honestly, is unbelievable. So let's go ahead and jump straight to a closer look at it right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of the Dimetrodon, you can see that all of the detailing just pops. Like really pops. The detail is super vibrant, super crisp. No matter where you look at it on the figure, the detailing honestly is as high quality as it gets. And the sculpt is as highly detailed as it gets, so that as well is very impressive. You can see some incredible skin texture throughout the course of the face of the Dimetrodon. Lots and lots of really nice scale detail. So many different varying sizes of scales as well as varying styles of texture. Like you can see that the skin texture there running under the nostril area, which the nostrils are nicely sculpted, but you can see that the skin texture here looks very different from what you see back here, and the scale detail looks very different from what you see right there. Like there's just so much difference as far as the sculpt goes throughout the entire course of the Dimetrodon. It is mind-blowingly beautiful. Even the underside here kind of sports some like pointy, almost ridge-like scales there hanging off of the lower jaw. You can see that the throat is beautifully sculpted out and defined right there. And then as we move up here, you can see the eyes are painted really nicely. Same deal over here. You can see they're painted with a red, given a very large black pupil. And all of the paintwork looks gorgeous. You have that nice light green, very reminiscent to the Kenner Dimetrodon, but you can see that it's not just the green. Like he's given it some nice depth to the paint, as there's like some slight hints of variations of browns and stuff in the face as well, like kind of hiding underneath the green, which I really love. You can also see more of that down here, as well as a little hint of like pink kind of as you get closer to the inside of the mouth. And of course the mouth is articulated, and you can see the inside of the mouth sports a very nice realistic tone of kind of like a purple. You can see the tongue sticking up in there. We have the mouth open pretty wide, a little bit too wide probably, but you can see again the tongue in there and all of the detailing on the inside of the mouth. If you look up there, look at how fantastic that is. Jurassic Justin has not skimped out anywhere when it comes to the detailing. Honestly, actually, look at that. Even the underside of the tongue is nicely detailed. That is detail that honestly I never expected. That actually quite shocked me, because I don't know that I've ever seen anybody detail the underside of a tongue. That shows just how far Jurassic Justin goes to give you the absolute best possible product. You can see the inside of the mouth on the lower jaw is also very nicely sculpted. And of course, the teeth are all sculpted individually. You can see the gum line here running along the inside of the mouth. And you can also see that the teeth are all painted in perfect fashion. Every single tooth painted perfectly. Again, this was painted by Jurassic Justin on top of everything. So the paintwork is done by the original artist, which I always love when you can get something that is painted and sculpted by the original artist, all entirely done by that individual. It's always just like the coolest feeling to have something like that. And that's, again, exactly what you get from Jurassic Justin. And that articulated jaw, you can see it's super smooth. I think the tongue, yes, the tongue articulates as well, so lots of articulation in there. And then if you come up here to the top of the head, you start to see some kind of rough and rugged looking scale detail and texturing to the skin. You can also see a nice darker green has been dry brushed over top, making all of that detail pop. And I love that the light green still kind of shines through the darker green there in between the scales and the wrinkles and stuff in the neck, the creases. As you move down the course of the neck, you start to see kind of like some armored like ridges picking up here on the back, which looks really cool. And of course we can turn this to get a better view of it. You can see that right there, almost like some osteoderm like ridges running along the back of the Dimetrodon. And you can see as we move down here along the side, the skin texture is phenomenal. Really nice creasing throughout the course of the neck region. You can see again that nice dry brushing, as well as even some hints of browns showing up here, just like we had seen in the face. You can also see that very nice light green. As we lead down here, a super smooth transition from the light green here, that primary light green, to this lighter green here for the underside of the neck. That is as smooth of a transition as it gets. As you move up here, you continue to see how incredible the detailing is, as we have lots more really nice dry brushing over those larger, almost osteoderm-like scales, again making each and every one pop in a super nice and super realistic way, as well as, again, allowing some of that lighter green to pop through each and every one of those darker green scales. As you move up here into the sail, which is probably the flashiest area of the Dimetrodon, you can see that the detailing also looks fantastic. Like, you can see almost veins and everything running through the sail in every area. You can also see again that the actual texturing to the skin looks phenomenal, and the coloration is also super flashy and very Kenner reminiscent, because we can see that we start with a very nice orange, and then it transitions very nice and gradually out to a yellow, and then kind of gets brighter and brighter as you reach the top as far as the yellow goes, and that looks super cool. But you can also see that in the darker areas, we start out with this dark green. It's like a very dark green, and even that transitions as we get closer to the tips to then a black, and you can see that the tips are all black and they are very pointy as we run out the length of the sail here of the Dimetrodon. Every one of those tips of the sail of the Dimetrodon seem to be a different size, which I feel like is a pretty nice realistic aspect of the model, so that also helps with the flashiness, and honestly really gives you one of the most amazing visuals as far as this Dimetrodon goes that I think you possibly could find when it comes to a Dimetrodon. I love the coloration of the sail. I think it is picture perfect, and also the tones of orange and yellow are very Jurassic Park-ish as far as what we usually see associated with Jurassic Park, so that as well honestly screams nostalgia. As you move down here into the front leg here, you could see again some more really nice detailing to the skin, kind of like some creasing and stuff, some very nice scale detail again that's super vibrant. Look at how it just pops on the sculpt. You can also see some muscle definition, and one thing that I really like that I'm noticing is you can almost see like it's kind of like a brown, but at the same time it almost looks like a slight hint of pink that you can see in certain areas on the Dimetrodon. I really like that as well. The color variation and coloration in general of this figure is so lifelike. As you move down into the foot, you can see like some nice scoots running down the course of the toes. That looks super nice as well. Again, the very nicely painted nails, they are painted with a black, which the feet in general look great. Even the undersides of the feet are very nicely sculpted out. And right there you can get a good shot of that pink that I was talking about. You can see the pink here right in the wrist area, and actually I'm noticing it, you can see it up here as well, which looks really neat. As you move back here into the body, you can see again some really nice creasing right there, some nice skin folds and stuff there at the joint of the front leg, as well as the rib cage showing here in the stomach region. And we again have really nice scale detail throughout, very fine scale detail the lower part into the stomach you are, but then as you lead up toward the sail, again you start to see that scale detail get larger and larger until it's almost in an osteoderm-like state as far as the skin texture and scaling goes. As you move back here toward the rear of the animal, you can see the hip bone a little bit there, kind of elaborated. You also have like some ridge-like scales there running over the hip bone. Again, some more osteoderm-like scales moving down into the thigh. The muscle definition is very nicely present in both the thigh and calf. You could definitely see them nicely bulging right there, and you can really pick up again on that kind of pinkish tone of color right there, which I really like. You can also see the kneecap right there in the front of the leg, and again the foot sculpt back here, which we can turn the leg completely to get a good view of it. You can see that foot sculpt looks great. Really nice creasing there in the ankle area, and then nice scoots down the course of the toes, as well as picture perfect nail paint there for the rear foot as well. And then as we lead back up here into the tail, again, one thing that is very Kenner-like was the appearance to the tail of the old Kenner Dimetrodon. It had that very unique appearance to the way that the tail was sculpted out, and you can see that is shown brilliantly here by Jurassic Justin in his remake here of the Dimetrodon, and you can continue to see those beautiful tones of like a pink that show up throughout each and every one of the articulated areas. I love that this is exactly how the older Dimetrodon looked as far as the sculpt of the tail, but he's utilized that appearance to create the actual articulation. So in between each and every one of those like little areas here where it separates, you can see that's where he articulated it. And that was such a brilliant idea on his part. And again, it is incredibly smooth articulation. This, not only is this a stop motion dream, but it's a dinosaur toy photography dream to have something this super beautiful and nicely articulated. But of course, being a fully articulated figure, that is up to you to display it. You're really not going to see too much difference over here, any more so than what we had just seen on the previous side. But you can see that as far as the paintwork and skin texture and everything goes, it continues to look, and you can see how far you can turn that neck, it continues to look as picture perfect and gorgeous as it gets. Very consistent as far as how the paintwork and sculpt is displayed on this side compared to the way that we had just seen it on the initial side. And everything seems to be painted and sculpted exactly the same way, so it continues with the consistency of what we had seen on the previous side. Again, the feet all look great. The nails are all painted perfectly. We have those beautiful tones of green, but we also have like those tones of brown kind of creeping through, as well as those pinkish tones throughout. You can see them showing up very nicely throughout every area. The tail again looks fantastic over here like it did on the initial side, and the underside also looks great. Look at how beautiful that sculpt is on the underside. Oh, look at that. That's really cool. So I didn't even notice that before. He actually has the retro revival footprint right there showing up on the underside of the foot. That's neat. That's a very cool way to display the logo without it being, very visible and in the way or anything like that. Very nice choice on the part of Jurassic Justin. But again, you can see the entire underside is honestly as phenomenal as it gets. I don't know that I can recommend a figure any more so than I can recommend this one, because this is just drop dead gorgeous. And now we get to the fun part, and that is showing off the articulation. So again, we had shown off that we have articulation in the jaw and the tongue, actually. So some very nice articulation there. And it seems, yes, the upper jaw also moves. You can see that moving independently from this area of the neck, so you do have a little bit of articulation there. You can also articulate the neck in two different spots right here, so you can create some really nice turns in the neck for your Dimetrodon, as well as the ability to look down, as well as the ability to look up. And it's all kind of like held together, it seems like, with like some wires inside or something. I'm not too sure exactly how he's done this, but I can feel it kind of stretch a little bit, which allows unbelievably beautiful articulation, so much nicer than what you would usually get from any figure. And then as you move down here in the leg, so like that's brilliant on his part, the way that he has created the articulation in this figure. But as you move down into the leg, you can see that we have articulation here in the shoulder area, which can move forward and back. It can also move out away from the body, so you can move it all over the place. You have elbow articulation as well, and you can really stretch those legs out. Like, look at that. That can go out really far. Oh, wow, that can go even further, backwards or forward, so you can really create some very cool poses. And then you also have articulation in the wrist. Can go forward, back, up, down, everywhere. It can totally swivel. Yes, it absolutely can. So super impressive articulation. And then the same deal I'd imagine here for the back. So you can see hip articulation here. Can go really far back, again, really far forward. And then we also have the knee articulation, which is super smooth. And then ankle articulation actually in two different spots right there. So you can see we have super nice articulation there in the ankle. You can bend it down. You can bend it up. You can again swivel it if you would like. Oh, we can pull the entire leg out a little bit there if we'd like. So lots of articulation in the leg, again, creating pretty much any pose that you would like. And then when we move to the tail, we've got a joint here, we have a joint here, we have a joint here, and then another one right here. I may have missed one because they kind of blend so well. Right here's one. They blend so well in the tail, like the articulated joints aren't really noticeable, which is not something you often see. You usually can just pick out the joints right away, but it's so smooth as far as the way that the tail articulates on this Dimetrodon. Again, it's almost hard to pick out the areas that it does articulate, but you can create some really nice poses again for the Dimetrodon. Articulate the tail however you would like. Again, it can go up. It can go down. Wherever you would like that tail to go, it can go. And with the amount of joints that you have in the tail, it just allows the most amazing articulation for your figure. As far as a size goes, for a length on the Dimetrodon, you were looking at just shy of about 8.5 inches or around 21.5 centimeters. And then for a height to the top of the sail, about 5.5 inches or 14 centimeters. I almost took them out with the tape measure right there, but for a size comparison, There is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon in comparison to our retro revival Dimetrodon from Jurassic Justin, and you can really see that it sports a very impressive size, especially when it comes to the height of that sail. It is very impressive, but it's not super large, and I feel like the size is like perfect for that Kenner style figure. It really matches nicely as far as the size that you would often get from a Kenner figure, so I like that aspect as well. Honestly, everything is so nostalgic with this figure, as nostalgic as it gets. And for another comparison, here is the standoff for the ages, as we have the Kenner Dimetrodon in comparison to the Jurassic Justin Dimetrodon, and you can see the obvious influence, you can see the obvious style similarities between the two figures. You can see how he's basically taken the Kenner version and upgraded it to give it his own flair, his own style, and create potentially the coolest Dimetrodon that has ever been made. And you can also in general see how cool they look together. Like, they're really nice to display together, so that also is another huge plus as far as this figure goes. So again, keeping a very strong similarity as far as the appearance to the original Kenner one, keeping that same flair and style that we love, but using Jurassic Justin's own style as well, and just combining them both to make the perfect nostalgic and retro version of a Dimetrodon. And then as far as Dimetrodons go, there we've got another one here as far as a size comparison goes. So you've got the Collect Day Dimetrodon now in comparison to the Jurassic Justin version again here on the right, showing off that the Jurassic Justin version yet again is even larger than the Collect Day version. And then for another comparison, here is the Chap May version of the Dimetrodon in comparison to the Jurassic Justin version, which I've always loved that Chap May version, but even that version doesn't quite compete with the Jurassic Justin version over here, although it might be a little bit taller or similarly sized. It's honestly hard to tell due to those spikes on the top of the Jurassic Justin version, but definitely no competition for the Jurassic Justin version by any means. And then for one final comparison, even though they just kissed right there, we've got the Papo Dimetrodon in comparison to the Retro Revival version. Again, you can see that the Jurassic Justin version really outsizes the Papo version, but again, hopefully you'll have one of these Dimetrodon. It'll help to give you at least a good idea roughly of what the size of this Jurassic Justin version is. So this Jurassic Justin Retro Revival Series 1 Dimetrodon is absolutely as jaw-dropping of a figure as it gets. It is few and far between that I am as impressed with a figure as I am with this particular Dimetrodon. And yeah, I'm pretty happy pretty much with any figure, but not every figure blows me away the way that this one here has. And finally having some work of Jurassic Justin in hand, showing off how incredible his work truly is, has me so psyched for anything and everything that he will produce in the future, because this is definitely one of the top releases that I have had the pleasure of reviewing from anyone in a very long time. It just honestly is so high quality, it is mind-blowing. The sculpt of the Dimetrodon is beautiful, so much detail, and on top of being incredibly highly detailed, showing off every ounce of movement and detailing throughout the course of the entire figure that you would expect to see. On top of all of that, the detail is so vibrant on the sculpt, it just pops in the absolute most beautiful way possible, and Jurassic Justin has done an excellent job of painting the figure up in a way that it really highlights the detail. So on top of the detail being incredibly vibrant to begin with, the paintwork helps to show off even more so how vibrant that detail is. And the paintwork is just gorgeous. Again, paying tribute very nicely to the Kenner Dimetrodon, but adding in, again, Jurassic Justin's own flair with some really nice tones of color throughout. The very nice classic green of the Kenner Dimetrodon, beautifully applied throughout the course of the majority of the figure, but then he's used darker greens throughout, very nice dry brushing techniques, as well as those really nice hints of like browns and pinks throughout the course of the figure that are so subtle with the way they're applied. His paintwork is honestly expertly done, and then you hit the sail area, and that sail is so flashy, so majestic and beautiful. I love the transition from the orange out to the yellow, showing off that really nice Kenner look just with the sail alone, and the paintwork again is so beautiful. It all looks like body color. Nothing on it looks like paint on a figure, so that as well shows off how good Jurassic Justin is at what he does. And then on top of the incredibly flashy appearance, you have the unbelievable articulation with the figure, with so many different points of articulation, allowing pretty much any and every pose that you would like to be possible on the Dimetrodon. Again, creating pretty much a stop-motion dream figure here as far as articulation goes. And it all works so smoothly. Honestly, so smooth it's scary, because like we always rant and rave about how good the Beasts of the Mesozoic figures are as far as their articulation goes, but the articulation on this Jurassic Justin Dimetrodon is actually even smoother than what you get from the Beasts of the Mesozoic. Like, everything articulation-wise on this works perfectly and works easily. There's no issues at all with stiffness in the joints or anything. There's just none of that at all occurring on this figure. The way that he has created his articulation is genius and picture perfect as far as allowing any and every possible position to be present on this Dimetrodon. The articulation again is just as impressive as the figure itself, and the figure is just as impressive as the packaging. Everything about this, the entire product overall, is definitely one of the most impressive things I've ever seen. So, if you are interested in this, and trust me, you should really place an order for one of these, because you would never in a billion years regret it. Make sure you check the link in the description, as I will include a link to Jurassic Justin on Instagram, where you can head on over there and contact him to place an order for this Dimetrodon. If you do not have social media, you can of course contact me, but he does also have an Etsy store where you can head on over to the Etsy store and place an order for the Dimetrodon there when it comes back into stock. I don't think it's currently up for sale, but I know he was getting ready to release Wave 2, so it's right around the corner. So make sure if you are interested in this, you contact Jurassic Justin, or again contact me, and I can try to inquire further about when it will be available for you, and you can place an order for one the moment that it goes up. And trust me, you're going to want to be ready, because they sell out very quickly, and now having one in hand, I can completely see why. I feel like he's going to have no problem at all selling out every single time he releases this Dimetrodon. So again, make sure you check the link in the description, buy one of these fantastic Retro Revival Dimetrodon figures, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.